SEBI Chairman Ajay Tyagi has reportedly written to the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister asking them to reconsider the budget proposal that seeks to transfer SEBI's surplus funds to the Consolidated Fund of India, that is to the government's coffers. Reports suggest the SEBI chairman has said that the move may compromise the perceived autonomy of the market regulator. This letter comes close on the heels of a letter shot off by the SEBI Employees Association to the PMO. The SEBI employees have argued similarly that the transfer of reserves will hamper the perception of the market regulator's autonomy. That's not all. The letter also highlights that it will hamper the working of the market regulator and therefore of the securities market. Joining me to take this discussion forward is Mr. Prithvi Haldia, founder chairman of Prime Database, also independent member on the SEBI board for many years. Mr. Haldia, thank you very much for joining me. Well, first up, let's be very clear
First of all,
yes, sir.
Just a small correction. I'm not a member of the board of SEBI. I've been working with SEBI in advisory capacity, but not a board member. Yeah, now go ahead.
No, the question that comes to the mind is that the amendment says the board shall constitute a reserve fund. 25% of the annual surplus of the general fund will go to that reserve fund, and the reserve fund shall not exceed the total annual expenditure of the preceding 2 years. Now, that's quite a bit of reserves, isn't it? If you have 2 years' funds, even then, do you think that the liberty or the autonomy of SEBI will be hampered?
So I'm quite appalled by this, the measure which has been announced. I think we should actually be moving more and more towards the autonomy of regulators. They are independent and they need money for technology, for development, for other kinds of expenditure. And in this kind of a move, where there is a requirement also to seek government's approval before incurring any major expenditure, I think would convert SEBI almost into a department of the government, which is not a welcome sign. SEBI already has a very strong board, including a representative of the Ministry of Finance. And I think the monies are spent very prudently. And in any case, CAG has an oversight as well as the Parliament over SEBI. So I think to now convert this almost into a department of the government is not a welcome move. It will surely hamper the functioning of SEBI, and I'm not in favor of this at all.
Okay, but I mean, are SEBI's expenses so onerous that they will be more than 2 years' expenses, which is available in the reserve fund?
No, so you see, the point is that SEBI has been enacted through an act. SEBI has its own sources of revenue, including levying fees on transactions or on market intermediaries, and has been following for the last 25 odd years a system of with checks and controls of spending this money. So this is, if the government is trying to mop up resources from every single place, where it thinks that, the money is lying idle or it's in a reserve and can be used for government expenditure, I think that is not, not something that we should really support. SEBI, as I've been watching for so many years, has not displayed any kind of extravagance or any kind of wrongdoing in terms of expenditures. And therefore, to tie it down not only for expenditure but also for seeking any expansion of capital expenditure, etc., where an approval will be required from the Ministry of Finance, would then not only delay a lot of processes but also subject it to unnecessary questioning and extra approvals, which in any case go through a process at SEBI and are finally approved by the board.
Okay.
Then you may as well not have a board at SEBI. You may.
Yeah, go ahead, sir. No, that was my point actually. Anyway, in the SEBI board, there are representatives of the Finance Ministry, either the Secretary himself or the Joint Secretary, likewise the Secretary of the Corporate Affairs Ministry or the Joint Secretary. So, I mean, anyway, the independence is curbed in a way. So, will it be extra curbed, do you think?
Yes, so no, so there's already, no, it's not, see, when you have somebody on the board, then you are already ensuring that there is enough oversight, because agenda papers for any kind of major expenditure or capital expense goes to these board members, who will apply their mind and then put up a point at SEBI board meetings, whether they agree with it or they want some revisions in it, or, any of those kinds of suggestions. So there's already a continuing dialogue between SEBI and the Ministry of Finance and the other stakeholders, RBI or Ministry of Corporate Affairs, who are on the board. Now, to put a condition where you have to now actually go to the Ministry of Finance for approvals, then you are actually reducing the board to a non-entity. I mean, then the board may, then for even regulatory changes, you may have a plan to get it approved from a third body, rather than empowering the board to do it. And internationally, we have seen that the regulators have to, see, money is one of the most important aspects of autonomy. If you have to depend upon an outsider for money, then obviously at every stage you will be constrained, and you will be, you will either get delays or you will get a cut in your budget, because the other person will not necessarily be on the top of the issue that you are discussing. And we have seen that, the SEBI board itself is competent enough to handle these things, and therefore I'm not in favor of this move at all.
Okay. I just wanted to know, are there issues on which SEBI takes a call on some government companies, like for instance minimum public shareholding? So would you, as a person watching SEBI work, worry that SEBI will not be able to be an effective regulator of government companies because it is dependent on government for money?
I think that is slightly stretching it too far. In any case, we have seen in the past that the SEBI has yielded to governments, SEBI has yielded many a times to government's demand for either extension of the minimum public shareholding norm, or in terms of number of independent directors or women directors. So SEBI has been, has been very open to discussions with the government and has never taken a very strong view. Actually, at many times has expressed helplessness in terms of getting some of the LODR or other regulations implemented. So I don't think that is a separate issue, and I don't think that is going to be hampered because of this monetary control. But on an overall basis, if SEBI has to now report to a third party for a lot of things which are operational or even capital in nature, then I'm sure the independence is being compromised.
Okay. No, I take your point. If the regulator has to go for, every single expansion, though, of course, the government will argue that anyway a reserve fund is provided and it is not a line-by-line authority that they have to take permission for. There is another point which somebody from government was pointing out, that last year SEBI used some of its reserves to buy the IDBI towers in Mumbai, and SEBI didn't quite need that much space, and that is what triggered this move from the government. They were overspending in terms of buying that property. Do you think there's an argument there?
You see, I don't know the nitty-gritty of this deal, but I can only say that SEBI currently in its headquarters is very constrained for space. Obviously, they are looking out for space which is available, around BKC, where they can expand. IDBI Tower again would be a government organization, so it's not, trying to put any kind of blame on SEBI that, you did a deal for a price higher than the market price. So there can't be any questions on that. On terms of capacity expansion, I think SEBI must have definitely made out a plan as to why it needs an extra space, how much space is required, where it should be located. All of that must have been discussed and, detailed out, and must have been discussed at SEBI board before the action was taken. Now, without having access to, how many square feet are they now buying, is that required immediately or 2 years from now or 3 years from now? Maybe SEBI has drawn up a 5-year plan of its space requirement and finds that IDBI Tower, for example, easily fits the bill in terms of both the size as well as the price. And therefore, that proposal must have gone to the SEBI board, where the Ministry of Finance is represented. And I don't think that there was a dissent note, at least publicly it is not known. In case there was a dissent note, then obviously, one can argue that there was some concern about buying this property. But presuming that there was no dissent note, it has gone through a proper process, And it's not a personal private property being bought by a government organization. Let us again underline the fact that it's a government organization buying another government organization's property. So I don't think any question should be raised on that count.
Okay. Well, that's a fair point. One hopes that these issues are heard and both sides are able to come to some amicable solution. Mr. Haldia, if I can detain you for a minute more, there is a separate issue on which I wanted your opinion. In the past month, two heads of two rating agencies have been asked to proceed on leave because reportedly some allegations were made against them in an anonymous letter. Now, we do not know the contents of the letter and therefore we do not know what has transpired. But what appears for market in terms of a market perception is that rating agencies will now worry that if they do not downgrade on time, they will have to face the wrath of investigation. Do you fear this can have an adverse reaction, more rating downgrades, even at the hint of something negative?
You see, there are a couple of things here. One is that whether it's a rating agency or any other organization, in case there has been a case of complicity or connivance or a quid pro or going down to a pressure and doing something, then obviously it needs adequate punishment and as substantial a punishment, because the markets depend upon these organizations for a lot of investments. Rating agencies, for example, we know guide almost the entire corporate bonds investment in this country. A lot of public money is involved there, whether it's from banks, from provident fund, etc. So there's a trust factor which is involved when you look at rating agencies. Now, there could be an error of judgment. There could be a case where the rating agency was not able to capture some developments in a particular company at the right point of time, and is able to prove that it was an error of judgment. But in case there is public information, public knowledge, there are papers to suggest that there is something wrong in a company, and if the rating agency just either defers the decision or just hangs its legs and does not want to act on it, then I think it's a serious matter. And I would not limit it to rating agency. Any market organization, whether it's a depository or a stock exchange or a rating agency, if they are not playing their adequate role, which is basically to ensure that their disclosures, their processes are all designed as per regulations and for the investors' interest, then I think we have to come down very heavily on them, because that's the only way the markets are going to then develop. You see, if we lose today faith in all these organizations, we have seen not only with rating agencies, there have been a lot of flack on the auditors, for example. Now, should the entire auditing profession not wake up and say that we have been not performing the desired role for so many years, and now we have to be stronger in our processes, etc. I think the time has come. Either if you want to be complicit with a company and just earn your fees, gone are the days. You have to face the music.
I take your point, sir. Actually, we are arguing with very little information. So far, nobody has said that there is malafide in the rating agencies, and therefore we do not know what the anonymous letter alleged. My only worry is that...
Even I don't, so even I don't know any details.
My only fear was that, first we had...
I have no...
we've had a lot of projects, 8 lakh crore of projects stalled as NPAs. To believe that all NPAs are frauds, first we saw attack on bankers, and I mean some of them even being sent to judicial custody, and then it came to auditors, and now it has come to rating agencies. There can be an overall risk aversion, and there will be absolutely an absence of animal spirits. That was my only worry, but I agree with you that in this specific case we do not have enough details to argue.
But I'll just conclude. We don't have enough details, but just to conclude on this, you see, we all agree that there is a lot of cleaning up which has to happen in the marketplace. This cleaning up may obviously also, hamper or delay certain processes. Companies may become more overcautious, rating agencies can become overcautious, and therefore it can lead to some kind of an impact. But so be it. I mean, that some impact is welcome. I mean, we are looking at the larger picture of the market becoming stronger.
Okay, all right. I hope it only remains that way, that it has the positive impact of cleanup and not a negative impact of capex taking even longer to pick up. Thank you very much.
I agree with you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Haldia, for joining us. We have to take a break. We are coming back and there will be more news that follows.